Hello, my friends. How are you today? It is June 8th. So I am a little late today. I had hoped to be on first thing this morning, and then I was trying to get on by 11, and I have had some technical issues for the last couple of weeks. So I'm hoping to iron those out. So as I move forward, this becomes less problematic and we're more consistent in how we show up. So today's episode begins a time of transition. And in fact, the name of today's episode is The Road Ahead, Preparing for Life's Transitions. Every year for the last 9 years, this month, I have transitioned a role with an international nonprofit that I have been a part of for nearly 28 years. It will be, well, actually, it has been 28 years. It will be 29 this coming fall. For nearly 30 years, I've been a part of this nonprofit organization, and every June since 2019, I transition in June from one role to another. And I got to thinking about that, and that's what sort of spurred this episode's topic. But then it also got to the point where part of my daily routine, I don't know what your daily routine is, but I have a daily routine where I get up and I meditate. I listen to a meditation, and then I usually listen to a TED Talk. Today's TED Talk that I listened to was How to Build a Career You Love by Bill Gurley, and it aired on April 17th, 2 months ago this year. And that, along with all these things that have been going on, got me to thinking about this topic. And that most of us begin a new chapter believing, and what I am here to tell you is I have learned that that is so not true. Life rarely works that way. Careers rarely work that way. Sorry about that. Careers rarely work that way. Relationships rarely, I'm going to turn off my sound on my phone. Relationships rarely work that way. Life, careers, relationships, I think just about anything in life, if there is a change or a transformation that's about to happen, we go into it thinking we have to have it all figured out. But what works out in the end is the moment you think you have it figured out, there is a Y in the road or a circuitous route begins to take shape. So as I was thinking about this and listening to the TED Talk that I listened to this morning, I got to this idea that whether you're considering a career change, navigating a relationship shift, or entering retirement, launching a new business, or simply sensing that something in your life no longer fits, which is the topic we have been covering for the last couple months. My computer is tilted just a bit and it's bothering. There we go. That transitioning often begins long before we take that first step. However, we don't know what's going to happen next. So in this episode, I am going to share with you how you might prepare yourselves for a change, a shift, a transition, even when you cannot see the full path ahead. So I have experienced many transitions in my life. When I was 3 years old, my family moved from Michigan, one house in Michigan to another house in Michigan. And then, yet 2 years later, at 5, I moved from a house in Michigan to a house in Minnesota. When we arrived in Minnesota, we lived in one house for 6 months and then we moved to another one in another neighborhood, only to move yet 3 years later to another house. And that house was a temporary move because my parents were building another house. So 6 months later, we moved to that final house, which was the house that I spent from age 10 to age 18. And then my parents moved. So when I think about my husband, or I think about some friends that I know and how they know where home is, they have a home base, or at least they have an idea of a home base. So perhaps their parents are no longer here and that home is since gone, but they know where home was. I didn't have that. Life was very transient. My home was very transient. I will tell you that the house that I'm presently living in with my husband and a couple of my sons is the house that we purchased in 2006. I have lived in this house longer than I have lived any other space. Wow. That's a lot of transition for a person when one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is having a roof over your head and feeling secure about that. I also think about careers that I've had. So, for the majority of my life, I was involved in service in some way, shape, or form. And my last not owned by me business that I worked in that was service oriented, the people that owned that business had a certain idea of what service meant. And I thought their definition of service was very limited. And to be honest with you, that is why I left that job and started my own coaching, consulting, facilitation of workshop businesses because I believed that service was more than what they thought. And then I think about relationships. The relationship that I've had the longest, even longer than the one I had with my parents, is the one I have with my husband. We have been married for 42 years, but we have been together for 45 years. Now, my brother and my cousins and my extended family are the only ones that I've had a relationship with for longer. However, they don't live anywhere near me. So I'm really not in a daily relationship with them. Yes, we'll get, chatting on Facebook, or we'll send emails back and forth, or we'll have a conversation on the phone, but it is not the same as being in the same place and space. I had no idea that any of this was going to happen. I just sort of went along with the flow. So, how does one prepare for transitions you know that are going to happen, or transitions that you don't know are going to happen? That is a question that I get asked frequently when I am working with clients. It is a question that I get asked frequently when I have taken a supporting leadership role with an organization as a volunteer. It is definitely a question that I am confronted with when I am doing some of the creative work that I do, whether it be involved in theater or writing or supporting writers or supporting artists. And It begins with listening. I know I've shared this before, but it begins with listening to what is stirring within and what your internal guidance system is shifting you towards. And it's learning to trust that voice and ourselves through uncertainty so that we can find the courage to take the next step, or in fact, the first step, without knowing what every twist and turn that lies ahead. I have discovered in the work that I do that meaningful transformation is rarely about having the perfect plan. It is more about curiosity and being open. There's a second not podcast, a second TED Talk that I listened to this morning. And I'm going to find the title of it because it fit this one. It was called How Changing Your Story Can Change Your Life by Lori Gottlieb. Lori is a therapist who does a Dear Therapist column. Stories help us make sense of our life, but remember that your perspective of your life and your story is only your story. It's only one-sided. And that is rarely the case for any of our stories. That I have my perspective, my husband has his perspective, my children have their perspective, my friends have another perspective, and the outside world around that has. And what I have come to learn is that reality lies in the combination, the culmination, the collaboration of those stories coming together. And it's not about the perfect plan or ideal that I have for my own life. It is really about how I am observing my life and editing my life and listening to my life. And if I go back to that first TED Talk that I mentioned, he was talking about it not being about passion so much as it is about fascination. And how these two TED Talks melded together is that Dr. Gottlieb shares that joy and happiness comes when we have flow in our lives, and we have play in our lives, and we have connection. And that the Venn diagram of those three circles coming together is where we truly have fun, and quite often where we find the niche in our life. Sometimes we go into college or a job or down the path of a relationship or a career or a passion project with one ideal of how it will come out. But as we're journeying down that path, we find something that is more attractive. And in fact, we get lost in the flow of it. And then we begin to really, truly enjoy what is in that flow. And then we're starting to have fun with our life. And those people that find themselves in that space sometimes put limits on that by saying, oh, if I could only do this every single day, all day long, my life would be perfect. Both of these TED Talk presenters and me have the follow-up question to you, and that is, why can't you? Why can't you do that every day of your life? And have it be the life that you passionately want to live. And going back in time to when I was getting my BA in psychology, and there was a psychologist that wrote a book called Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. And my question to you is, why not? Why not? Especially in this day and age where technology and AI and um, streamline streamlining things that are strategies so much. Why not expand back into our creative things and find that thing that puts us into flow and has us feeling joy in our life? I certainly asked that question of myself back in 2020 when I began to explore what I might do outside of the job and career that I had at the time. And that, in fact, is how I've ended up here. And I will tell you, since 2020 to 2026, I have just been digging deeper and deeper into what is the thing that I am truly fascinated by. And it's helping people through transitions and transformations and bringing lightness and fun and flow and connection into people's lives. All of that starts with awareness. It starts with the morning that you wake up and you go, oh no, I really don't want to get up and go to work today. It's not fun anymore. Why am I doing this? Or maybe it is the relationship that has been strained lately and you're not sure why, and you're a little bit afraid of asking that question of the other. Or maybe you are getting ready to retire. And there's an expectation that when we walk away from a career and we retire, we're done. I challenge that. Are you done, or are you just entering the next phase or chapter of your life? Whether whatever you're going to do next is going to bring you income or not, it does not matter. It is a transition from point A to point B. And what do you want point B to look like? What have you been experiencing in A that you wish would just go away? I don't ever want to experience again. And that transition between A and B is learning how to let go, how to do things differently, how to see the world differently. But it starts with awareness. It starts with a fascination, a curiosity, a question, the difference between knowing the destination and the entirety of the journey are not the same. So as I celebrated my 65th birthday a month ago, it was just a day. However, if I go back in time 5 years to my 60th birthday, I had a son just get married. It was post-COVID. So what did I do? I suggested to my husband that we take the whole family to Hawaii and that we allow my son and his new wife to have a separate space from us, but that we would all take the journey together and experience Hawaii together. I will tell you that my children, my adult children, remember that year so well. We had also gone on a skiing trip. We went to Hawaii, and then we went sailing. We had 3 big journeys together. It left me going, I want more of this. I want to figure out how I can do more of that with my family. And I will tell you, each of my children, each of my 3 sons and my son's wife, all were like, how do we continue this? So we began exploring and talking about all the different ways and things that we could do it. And while we've all gone on our own individual ways, that year of experiences has helped them see new paths for themselves. You know, uncertainty can be a great teacher if we allow it to be. However, we push and push and resist and, oh, woe is me. We will be stuck in that woe is me mindset. And that doesn't help, does it? You know, when something starts to shift and you did not plan for that to happen, it's always good to start asking yourselves questions. This is interesting. I wonder what's next. Another great question is, what if? What if I make the move myself and walk away? Or what if I make the move and walk toward? Some of those ways are, whether it be the questions, the fascination, the taking action, understanding the journey is not the be all end all. We have an idea where we want to go, but it may change because the journey may shift. Those are all ways that you can begin to build trust in yourself about some of the feelings that you're having around what's next in my life. On the flip side of that, there are some great questions to ask yourself. And I would encourage you to come back to this or take a moment now to write them down. The first one is, what area in my life feels complete, even if I haven't fully acknowledged it yet? I think about the last 5 jobs that I had working for someone else. And in those 5 jobs, I found this question to be very important. Is this an area of my life that is complete? And why? Also, what is asking you to pay attention to it right now? Is it your health? Is it your relationship? Is it the fact that you do not enjoy going to work every day? Is it the fact that there is an impending retirement coming? You know, one of my very first coaching clients was a woman who was retirement age and was struggling with the idea of retiring. She wasn't sure what that would look like and what she wanted to do. So we spent a great deal of time working through questions about joy, about expectations the outside world might have of her, about creating healthy boundaries with people so that their expectations wouldn't become her have to do's. Really good question. What is asking me to pay attention to right now? What are the questions coming up? You know, I have one of these right now in an area of my life that I question whether the community I belong to, I should stay attached to, or if it's time to move on. I have been a member of that community for on and off probably 37 years. And there has been quite a bit of turmoil and challenge in it. And not everyone takes turmoil and challenge well. And some people put up barriers and walls and believe that the change is happening because of another person. And I have, quite frankly, been at the brunt of some of those people's belief in that the reason things have changed is because of me, which at times can feel very toxic and very suffocating. And I had an incident occur last week that I really question whether this is the environment and space that I should be in. So that is a question I am working through myself. And then another question is, what would I do if I trusted my belief, my insight, my intuition, and my longings more? What would I do? And I think that for me goes hand in hand with the previous one. Do I belong in this space anymore? So I'm questioning those things. What is one small step that you could take in your life to help you move forward, to create something else, to live in more joy? Just ask yourself that question. So today's episode was not about answering any questions. It was more about asking you a lot of questions to consider for yourself. Are you prepared for what's next in your life, the next chapter? Have you sat with that question? Next chapters can happen for 18-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 20-something-year-olds, 30-something-year-olds, 40-something-year-olds, 50-something-year-olds, 60-something-year-olds, 70-something-year-olds, 80, and so on. There are times in our lives that we all transition to something new, something unknown, something unexpected, something we hadn't planned for. So today was about you considering and thinking about those things. So I have a couple of things to share with you today as we move into the month of July and nearly upon my 1-year anniversary of beginning this podcast. I am going to change the rhythm just a little bit. So the new rhythm for the Creative Connection beginning in the month of July will move to a twice monthly schedule where one will be just me talking and the other I will have a guest interview. And we are going to have thoughtful conversations and explorations about reconnecting to ourselves, about gaining clarity, about creating a way forward that feels aligned with who we are becoming. There will be talks of transition. There will be talks of voice. There will be talks of vision. There will be talks around alignment. And I've begun interviewing particular potential guest speakers on who is going to fit in this season of my podcast. And I'm really excited with some of the women that I've been speaking with to help us move into this new phase. The other thing I wanted to share is I got to thinking about today's topic and I got to thinking about how can I help you with transitions? How can I help you with visioning around your next chapter of your life? Whatever chapter that might be, career, relationship, personal. And so I have decided that I am doing a free workshop next Thursday. It is called Visioning Your Life. It will be at 7:30 p.m. Pacific for 1 hour. It is free. And it really will center around this wondering what your next chapter might like. I will be asking the question, what is the biggest challenge? Or what are some of the biggest questions you have around what your next chapter will be? Then we'll pause, we'll reflect, and we'll begin creating a vision for your life. I hope that together in that 1 hour time span, we can begin to explore where you are now and what matters most to you now, and what possibilities may be waiting to emerge for you. And at the end of that 1 hour time period, I should have some resources for you. Again, it will depend on who is there because everyone is different. Some resources that you can look into. And if you would like to go deeper into discussions, I am always available for that as well. So in my show notes today, I will have a link for that workshop next Thursday. I will also have, as I always do, a link to my website, my LinkedIn page, my email. And my parting words for you today are you do not need to see the entire path before you begin. You only need to know that you are going to begin. The clarity of knowing that you are going to begin will help you take the first step, and then the next step, and the step after that. Thank you for being here, Cyndi Thomsen, The Creative Connection. I look forward to connecting with you. I will be back next week. And that will be the last one for this month. And then I will begin that rhythm of every other week, the second week of July, which I believe is the 8th or 9th of July. So until next week, have a fabulous day. And thank you so much for tuning in.